guys. I just wanted to come on. There's been a message on my heart for a few days, and I thought I would just come on tonight and do it, even though it's kind of late. And I just finished painting. I haven't finished the whole room, but as you can see, I painted this room. Let me see. If I turn it, you can see the color. No, you can't really see the color, but it's a really pretty pale kind of, supposed to be tealish blue, but it's a little bluer than teal. And that's because I didn't use primer, but anyway, as you can see, I've been working, so I'm a little sweaty. But anyway, I've just had on my heart the past several days this service announcement. There are like mini service announcements that go through my mind and my heart that God, the divine, I don't really like using the word God, but that the divine puts on my heart. And so we're just gonna jump in. Always starting out, it's always a little weird for me sometimes. So this is the service announcement. And first, let me tell you, I am not a financial planner. I am not into real estate anymore. I never really sold real estate, but I used to, we had rental properties and stuff, and would take care of them and stuff like that. And so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Always get advice from those who know, whose profession it is to help you in these areas. But even with that said, I feel like there's a need to say some stuff, especially to the melanated community. And most of what I'm going to say will apply to anybody. But sometimes I feel like in our spiritual endeavors, we really, there's such a push to be self-focused in our spirituality. And we need to be, in a way. I'm not saying don't try to get your own life and heart and goals together, but I truly believe that the way we change the world is by impacting other people. And yes, we can do that through our energy, and as people learn to increase the level of their vibration, you can impact people just by walking in the room. Like, people can be impacted through your aura. That said, I live in an area where a lot of older people, I guess, have lived in this town for a long time. I haven't lived for a long time. I've only been here about 4 years. But it's an old town, right, with a lot of history and a lot of elderly people. And so during COVID, a lot of elderly people passed away. And I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that word. So during, the great illness that happened everywhere around the world, a lot of people passed away. And so there's a lot of property that is in, that has been in probate, that's like in the courts because people haven't left wills. So there was a lot of property in probate, and there is a lot of property that, just was abandoned due to people no longer being in this realm to pay for it and take care of it. And so I think, especially in, there's a high population of melanated people in this area. And one of the things that I find is that people don't talk about, plans for their property, plans to, one of the greatest way that wealth has passed on to future generations is through property, and passing that property on to their descendants and their children and their grandchildren. And so in melanated communities, a lot of times this stuff is not talked about, and there's no trust. And so what happens is people die, and then this property sits in probate for several years, and families end up fighting over it, and basically nobody gets anything, right? Or there's, you know, and when a house is not being used, if it's sitting in probate for 3 years, that 3 years, the house degrades a lot, because a house is like a living thing and it needs to be lived in. And when it's not lived in, it deteriorates really fast. And so for the melanated community, there's a lot of wealth that is lost through not having things set up to pass on to our families and our descendants, our children, our distant, if you don't have children, your distant relatives, having it set up. So that happens through sickness and death. It also happens through as people get older, and you live a long time, right? Let's say you live until you're 80, okay? And then you need to go into a nursing home. Well, the past, I would say, oh my gosh, I think it's been about 20 years now, across the country, that municipalities have been writing bills that when you go into a public nursing home, if it's sponsored by the state, that they take your property, that your mother, your grandfather, your cousin, your aunt, whoever it is that owns this home, if they need to go into a nursing home because the family cannot afford to pay for at-home care, or they can't take care of themselves, or they can't pay for a nursing home out of their pocket, well then that county, that state, that municipality takes possession of their property as payment for them being in this nursing home. Even though they paid taxes in this area for their whole life, they still get their property taken. And so what needs to be done, and you need to talk to a lawyer about it for your state, or for usually it's by state, about how long beforehand this property needs to be transferred over into someone else's name. You can have a family member buy it, you know, especially if it's paid off. You can sell it to them for a few bucks, you know. For people used to do it for, gosh, like $100, and maybe now that may have changed and it might need to be a little bit more, but basically, you know, for a couple of bucks, $1,000, you sell this property to a relative, to your children, to whoever you're planning on leaving it to, and you have a living will that as long as you are able to live in this on your own, you know, that for your life you remain in this property. So it's not like you or your relative passes over this property to someone else and then they find themselves on the street because, you know, they've given it to a crooked relative. Like, that's not like that. You do a living will where this relative stays in their home throughout their life, but if they get ill and they end up in a nursing home or something happens like that, this property is already passed over to another relative, and usually it needs to be anywhere from like 5 to 10 years before this illness puts them in a nursing home. And so again, you know, I am not a lawyer. I am not, I don't do any of this stuff professionally. I just know that there's a lot of wealth that is lost in our communities through not being prepared, through not, you know, investing $200, you know, $500. I think you can find a pretty inexpensive lawyer to do this kind of stuff generally for a couple $100 if you're just doing this simple thing, right? But ensuring that this wealth doesn't go back to the state, you know, or to people who have been stealing our wealth from us for generations, okay, blocking wealth from us. That's the thing we don't want to do. And I think in our society, there are so many ways that have pit melanated people against each other to not pool our resources, to not adequately pass on our resources to each other, to not support each other, to not lift each other up. And this affects us as a community, and it keeps us in a state of being that allows us to continually be prey for those who know the system, for those who have more wealth, and it doesn't help us to move on or to lift ourselves out and lift our families out of some of the challenges that we have found ourselves in this society and in this system of suppression. So that's one thing that came to my mind. And then, because I was driving around through the neighborhood to get to work. And I'm like, there's so many houses. I have across the street, a gentleman passed away during that whole time of illness. And his house just got bought a few months ago. And so it's bought by this man who is going through this neighborhood and buying up lots of houses. And he is doing a good thing. He is buying them up and fixing them up and providing low income housing for people, or low rent, or I think he does a lot of Section 8. So, you can say, wow, that's great. My problem with that is that it's a white guy doing it in a melanated area. And so that wealth is going to him when there are plenty of melanated people who should be, or who can be, or who really, I will say, should be investing in these communities. And not only are you helping that community out and helping these people out, but you're also helping out yourself and your own personal wealth and your own personal advancement in life. Sorry, someone just sent me a message and my phone sideways. So I think it's time that those people who are able to purchase properties. Okay, and so I'm jumping around a little bit. The divine put this on my heart yesterday and a couple of days before that. It's just been kind of mulling to tell people, like, we've really, 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 really got to move on investing in ourselves and reclaiming our wealth and lifting up our community and doing it as a whole, doing it as seeing ourselves as someone that the divine wants to move through to lift up the whole race of people in big ways and small ways, right? And so then this evening, this podcast pops up on my feed, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And basically it was on a similar thing. There's this one guy who's in Philadelphia who has like major business in real estate, a black guy, and it's a black podcast, I think, called Motion, or maybe In Motion, and these two young black men interview like really well-known, successful black people. And so this real estate guy, they've had him on, this is his second time. And so he was talking about how to buy houses in communities like this where people have passed away, or communities that are poor, or communities that are being gentrified, which I would say this area is being gentrified. Um, you know, that there are so many government programs that help people, that give you free money basically to go in to fix up these houses and to make them affordable housing for people. And that's basically what this guy does. Like, he's not putting out any of his money, but he's got I think the Hispanic guy who is doing his work for him was telling me this guy's got like 40 houses in this downtown area. And most of that, he has not put any money down. So there are programs, there are community programs, there are state programs, there is so much money that is being given out, especially if you have a decent credit score, to be able to buy these houses for little to no money to make them affordable housing. And you can make money doing that. There's so many different ways. So I would look up that podcast, In Motion. I think it was entitled How to Buy a House for $1, something like that. But the point is, I think for me, the divine was reiterating that, yes, this is something that people need to hear. This is something that people need to be called to. And especially spiritual people need to be called to do things that benefit themselves and benefit the community. Like, we've got, especially in the melanated community, we've got to get away from not supporting each other and not lifting each other and not being there for each other and allowing other people to come in and to take advantage of the gaps and to take advantage of to take wealth away from us that we could get easily, and I really think the divine is calling us as a people to unify, to make changes so that we are not always at the bottom of the barrel, that we are not always as a community victims of other people's passions and lack of integrity, or the wealth gap, like always being on the bottom of the wealth gap. And we for so long have been taught that, okay, just as an individual, you go out and you do your thing, you become a doctor, you become this, you become that, and then people go on and don't take responsibility or realize that, wait, okay, as I come up, let me bring others up with me. And I mean, athletes do this really well, but in general, like us as individual people, somehow we lose connection to the community, to lifting people up, and we don't feel that responsibility. We get caught up in the ethos of this matrix of making sure that we're all set. And if we're all set, then it's okay. We can turn a blind eye to these other things. But there is so much we can do and so much power we have to change things for not just ourselves, but our whole communities. And so I pulled a few cards, like right before I sat down, I pulled a few cards. I only wanted 3, but I think like 6, 7 came out. And so I'm gonna just read the cards. And so we've got the Knight of Wands, which is in this deck, it's the Badger. We've got the Ace of Wands. We've got the 4 of Pentacles. And so the Knight of Wands is like a go-getter, a starter. You know, the Badger is like fierce. I don't know if you know much about the Badger, but these Badgers are, like, you don't want to get in a fight with a Badger. A Badger will do more damage to you than a bear. Like, a Badger is pretty badass. So like Badgers are action-oriented animals, and they get stuff done. And the Knight of Wands carries a lot of energy, a lot of fire energy, and it carries a lot of energy of action, of doing things, of movement. The knights and the tarot are doers. They get stuff done, you know. They're foundational. And so in relation to this topic that we're talking about, like this would be, you know, saying, yes, it's time for us to get involved. It's time for us to make a change. It's time for us to be involved in our communities. And it's time for us to have conversations with our family to make sure that property is being passed off, that people don't die, and then the property just ends up in probate and getting lost or getting taken by the state. But that the wealth that we've worked for and we've acquired, that it builds our family, and that it's not just a loss, and that we're constantly in that same spot, kind of like we're in quicksand, like you're trying to swim but you're sinking. Like this is no more what the divine wants for our community and for our personal lives and families. And so it's time to take action on this. Got the Ace of Cups, new beginnings, right? New opportunities and changes and getting our hearts, and like cups are about the heart and the feeling and intuition and that inner knowing, right? And having this new beginning with this knowledge and this knowing and these emotions with our family and with our community, like making things happen. Let me see if this says something. Oops. Okay, so the Ace of Cups. It says the Ace of Cups message is to see the world from a place of a loving divine energy. When you open your heart and experience each moment without prejudice, new opportunities will appear. Get out into nature. Appreciate the beauty surrounding you, not as a spectator, but as a participant, as a contributor to its grace. When you lean into the Ace of Cups energy, your intuition is heightened and your higher self's connection is formed. And so again, you know, this relates so perfectly, right? With opening our heart and our experience each moment, when new opportunities will appear, right? And to be a participant and not just a spectator, to be a participant of turning around our communities, to be a participant of making sure wealth grows in our families, right? And to participate in this and not just be a spectator, making sure that our families and our communities and our neighbors have all their ducks in a row, so that advancement is seen, advancement is felt, wealth is built. Communities are transformed, and that we're united, so that there's a power behind us. And then we've got the Four of Pentacles, and this is the Fox. And sometimes the Four of Pentacles is, you know, it talks about being on solid ground. You know, it talks about just being solid, you know, and not necessarily being in a place of want, but sometimes it can be, you know, that holding on. And so we hold on, it makes us stuck. You know, we got this little bit. It's like, oh, I got my little bit, so I'm just going to hold on to this. And sometimes we have to let go to move on, to grow our wealth, right? We can't just be happy with the little bit that we have. We can't just be happy with, okay, well, I got my home and I'm all set. Well, no, like how then can we grow the community? How then can we transform who we are as a people? How then can we better not just our lives, but better the lives of everyone around? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. There's that huge bug up there. I don't even know where it went. was so freaking big. Now my dog's barking. Okay. I guess this needs, there's like an AC unit in the window. It needs to be sealed better. That is, I don't like bugs. So sorry. Yeah, I totally got distracted. So, but just not holding on so tight, right? Allowing ourselves to grow and to call our community with us. My dog's upset because I ran out there. Well, at least I know where they're coming from. Okay, so then I pulled the Seven of Wands, and it says the Seven of Wands speaks of holding your position, digging in your heels, and not giving an inch. You may feel like the alligator, low to the ground, concrete, and connected to your beliefs. Use this to benefit. Use this to your benefit if you encounter someone who challenges your philosophy. The Seven of Wands may also point you to those around you who feel threatened by your position, who may feel a need to challenge you. If you know you are in the right, hold firm. When you commit to your place, you will be unshakable. Others around you may not be able to see the whole picture from their vantage point, and will be at a disadvantage as you see the situation from a better perspective. And so sometimes when we want to help people, sometimes when we have wisdom, it's not always taken easily right away. And sometimes, especially when you start talking about property and wealth, and if you have your will in place and stuff like that, sometimes relatives can be a little defensive because they're like, well, you're trying to steal what I got. But we need to have these conversations, right? Because wealth keeps being stolen, wealth keeps being lost, wealth keeps being mismanaged and not passed on to benefit our benefactors, to benefit our descendants. And so we got to have these conversations. And my personal opinion is that we need to start having these conversations. Like, a great place to have them is in the church. Like, the church should be a place where we come together, kind of like the barbershop used to be, right? Guys would go to the barbershop and they talked about stuff, right? So the church needs to be a place, not just that indoctrinates you to a white Jesus who actually was a black Yeshua, but it needs to be a place where we go to and we talk about issues and situations that impact the people of that community, right? Especially in the melanated communities. It should be on a Wednesday night instead of talking about, praying Jesus into your heart. It should also be about, hey, have we talked to our family about our plans? Like, have we, is there a lawyer, inexpensive lawyer in the community? Is there a lawyer in the church that does this kind of stuff that we can go to? Is there, there's so many subjects about life that would benefit people in the community, and there needs to be a safe place to talk about stuff. There needs to be people who are trusted and professionals who can bring these subjects up, so it doesn't come across like we're trying to take advantage of people, or we're trying to push something that people don't need or don't want, or they're afraid, so they don't bring up. But we need, as a community, we need to bring up issues that impact our communities. And I personally think that the church is a good place for that. So then we brought up the star. And I know many of us don't go to church, right? I mean, I used to go to church, they do Bible with people and stuff like that. But currently, I don't. Okay. That's gonna stop soon. And this bug sprite is like making me joke. So then I got the star, right? It was the stag. Isn't that beautiful? The stag is considered a very spiritual animal. And the star is says powerful and protective. When I think of the star's energy, the word grace comes to mind. Being at peace while basking in its light, you can feel your world shift as it transitions into a place of tranquility and harmony. The energy held within the card opens a direct channel to the divine, allowing feelings of hope and optimism to replace negative thoughts or emotions that may have been dominating your situation. There is a quiet confidence woven within the star that comforts us during times of grief or heartbreak and instills within us the knowing that everything in the end will be okay when confronting the most challenging of struggles. Intuition, confidence, protection, and it goes on. It says a lot, but basically, I mean, this is the confidence, that knowing when we confront these issues as a community, that things work out, that there will be blessings, that there will be transition, that there will be transformation. And now is a time in our communities and society where there's a need for greater focus on moving forward the community. And when we initiate these things, it may start out a little rocky, but there was going to be so much change, so much benefit, so much transformation, not just for us, but for the community at large. And then I had the tower come out, and this tower, there are vultures in it, and a lot of people don't like vultures. Vultures are pretty awesome. But one of the things that vultures do, right, is they take a not so good situation, they take where something is tied, and they clean up the community. They clean up, they clean up the animal, the roadkill, the leftovers from the deer. Like they are essential. They take death and make it purposeful, make it useful, make it benefit. And the tower is also about change, and that doesn't always mean bad. We think of change sometimes and we think, oh my gosh, there's like something bad's gonna happen. No, this is talking about change, that we are making sure that when the changes come in our life, that there is blessing from it, that there is benefit from it, that there is positive transformation. I'm still looking for that bug, so sorry. No, let's stop it. It's my dog. That there is great benefit from it. And this talks about that it doesn't take long to change a community, right? Because the tower sometimes is about like change coming quickly, and the impacts of it. And so then I pulled a few wealth cards. I haven't looked at them, but it says, I open myself to the immeasurable possibilities that each moment holds. So we're being called to open ourselves to immeasurable opportunities that each moment holds. Then it says, this ever-expanding universe, my prosperity. In this ever-expanding universe, my prosperity is also ever-expanding. And so this is a call, like the divine is saying, hey, it's time for us to expand our prosperity, not just shrink it, right? Not for it to be limited, not for us to lose it, but for it to expand our prosperity and the prosperity of our families, of our communities, and of the world. Not to hoard growth and change and benefit, but for it to expand it for everyone. It says, I welcome the lessons the universe offers me so that I can celebrate to greater success. And she's walking into a house, right? Let's celebrate success. Let's make change. So, you know, this may part of me is like, oh, this seems like it was all over the place. And I don't know, maybe it was, but hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you can have a conversation with your family. Or, you know, if you're older or you're someone that owns a house, do you have a will? You know, is it written out? You know, are things in order to give to your family? Do you, you know, there's so many ways. Like maybe you could be someone that initiates this in your community, at the community hall or at your church, you know, and having an evening where you have a lawyer come in and talk about estate planning, talk about, you know, transferring our wealth. It talks about these things because we really need to grow in making sure that it's not just the wealthy who have access to, you know, expensive lawyers that are passing on their wealth, but we need to be at that point where we are also passing on what we fought for and making sure that those who come behind us benefit. So anyway, thank you for this time. Hit the like button if something inspired you. If you like something, leave a comment and or hit the subscribe. And I'll see you again, and this is my service announcement.